Hello, chefs. This is Chef's PSA Podcast. I'm your host, André Natera. Today's guest is Chef Junior Borges, good friend of mine, known him for a long time. He's an outstanding chef, and he has multiple awards, including most recently being nominated for Outstanding Chef in the United States by the James Beard Foundation. He's a member of the Culinary Council for Mentor BKB, and he's just all around a really cool guy. I think you'll really enjoy this conversation. Stay tuned. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Did you see the new list of the Michelin key hotels?
I did.
Yeah. So it's interesting because obviously the stars are not announced. And I don't know when this podcast will come out, but last week the announcement from Michelin came out. All the keyed hotels in Texas got announced, and some, I think it was all over the U.S., right?
I think it was Mexico, U.S., and Canada.
Yeah. So all
North America.
Yeah. For us in Texas, I'm trying to think. Hotel Emma got it, two keys, and
I think we're like 20 hotels total across Texas that got a key, and I believe there was only a handful that got two. I think it was two auberge properties.
One in Austin.
Fort Worth.
Oh yeah, the one in Fort Worth, the one in Austin, and then Hotel Emma in San Antonio.
I believe that was it.
Yeah, and then a lot of one key. So where I was at, they got one key. They would have got two. If I was still there, they would have got two. But congratulations to everyone.
No, for sure. Yeah.
It's interesting to see how Michelin's now doing the keyed hotels because for chefs, for a lot of people that they want to go the Michelin route, and a lot of hotel chefs, they don't have that option. I mean, some of them do, but a lot of them don't. And this kind of validates, okay, I'm in a high tier luxury hotel that can, obviously has good food, good service, or else they're not going to be on Michelin's radar. But yeah, it's interesting to see the people that got the keys, and what's going to be really interesting to see who gets the stars. Do you have
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people always, often the last few months, right? Everyone kind of asks, who do you think is going to get it? Who do you think is going to get it? I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be more. I feel like it's going to be a little bit more disappointment than I feel like it's going to be a little some ego check.
Yeah.
I do think that is a great thing though. Michelin coming and whoever doesn't get it, it doesn't mean that you're not doing the right thing. And then I mean, and I feel like it's funny because I was saying this to someone about the Florida guide. And I think the first year Tampa did not get 1 star, and then I think now 2 years later, there is 4 or 5 restaurants in Tampa that has a star.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're in it's something that I thought. I always wanted Michelin to come, and I think it will elevate the game for sure. And I think whoever doesn't get it this year, will kind of continue to push themselves to get it the next year.
And there's rumors, and I haven't verified these rumors, so I don't know if this is true or not. But there are rumors that World's 50 Best is doing a North America list, 50 best restaurants North America. I don't know if that's true or not. I've heard the rumor. I think I saw that they did announce the 50 best bars North America. So that's official, I believe. If I'm wrong, they could fact check me in the comments. But I do think that the 50 best coming to the U.S., Michelin coming to Texas. Obviously, James Beard is already here, and congratulations on your nomination too.
Thank you.
It's interesting to see that. Just because a chef might be in the Michelin world, they might not be in the James Beard world, or they might not be in the World's 50 Best world. All three of them kind of look a little bit different.
Yes, I mean, I think they all, and it kind of makes sense, right? I think at the end of the day, those are all great recognitions, but they all kind of, I think, the way that the world is, the way the economy works, and how the money works, this is all sponsorship opportunities.
You're letting out secrets.
Come on, dude. It's always great. It is, of course. Imagine how much money it generates for World 50 Bass to come to the U.S. So it's a great thing.
Don't take San Pellegrino off your menu.
Exactly. But put it on your menu.
Put it on your menu right now. Like, go call San Pellegrino. Say, let me get lots of aquapana. Take 10
Exactly.
cases. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a good thing. Listen, I feel like Michelin coming. I've always felt that the talent I've been in Texas now for 10 years, and I feel like when I moved here 10 years ago, it was definitely a completely different landscape, right? Like in Austin, Dallas, everywhere. And I feel we have come so far, and even within those 10 years, there has been so much growth and talent and different places opening and kind of like, places that were definitely more developed, that I felt that it was like, man, like we have so much money here, talent. So it's kind of like, why is Michelin not coming? Right? Like,
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we were just talking before we started recording. We were talking about how there's so many new chefs that, I mean, I live in Texas, and all I do is think about food and the chefs, and I'm like, there's so many new chefs that I don't even know that are doing great things. Like, and it's like, wow, where'd this guy come from? Where'd this girl come from? I don't know who they are, but boy, their food looks good. Yeah. And if you look at the food that people are putting out today, like, it would be, the best restaurant in the country 10 years ago, right?
For sure.
Food has evolved so much. I was talking with Philip Spear. He was on the podcast a couple of episodes back. We were saying how you for sure were on the radar for sure. I think Meridian was one of the best meals I've had. Honestly, so I could say this now, like I would say in the past few years, especially when you opened it, I think that was the best meal I had in Texas, arguably. Yeah, I mean, I was like, damn. And you know what's funny is a lot of other chefs would say the same thing. Like we all talk shit behind the scenes. Like, yeah, Meridian's.
No, it was an amazing project, that's for sure. And I think the people that were there were incredible. I was extremely honored and proud to be able to kind of cook this food that had this representation, representing like my culture and have a take on Brazilian cuisine that most people didn't know and still kind of don't really know, right? Like, I mean, and I think be able to kind of had done that, and I felt that when we opened, like the first year or so, man, we're doing like, it felt good, right? Like it felt that like the team was kind of getting stronger and better, and there was a connection between the front and the back, and it was a good thing. They were telling the stories and relating what the concept was, but we're lucky, right? We're having all these people coming into the restaurant and saying how great it was, and people from Chicago, from Miami, from New York, and I'm like, man, like this restaurant could be in New York and would be successful. Could be in Chicago, it could be successful.
So for a lot of people that don't know Brazilian food, and I know we've talked about this, but was it difficult to start to introduce? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but this was the first time that you were able to say, this is me, right? This is my food. This is a combination of what I've done in my career, and I'm showcasing my Brazilian heritage. Was that difficult to introduce to Dallas?
It was a little bit. It was kind of like, I think it was a little difficult to even sort of grasp, right? Like, I think like like we started, when it started kind of developing, I knew that it was like, okay, I got this clean slate to create a concept. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to create a concept, I need to kind of put myself on the plate. And it's a process, right? Like, I mean, when you were a young chef, as soon as you kind of get that first position, you were cooking a lot of the stuff that you learned from the previous restaurant that you worked, right? Or the stories that you have, or the if you're a sous chef or a CDC or whatever, like you're doing that food very close to what you know. Then I think like years, like had been an executive chef, had creating concepts, had work under different concepts and get enough experience to kind of like, now I'm able to do this. I think I at that point in my life, I felt I was comfortable enough to say, like, okay, this is me, but this is also my first time doing it. So I think, like, you're right. Like, it was a little bit of like, okay, is it people going to understand this? Is it going to be weird? This toasted yuca flour, the farofa, right? Like, is it going to be weird texture for people? Like, you know, like for me, it's not, because I grew up eating, right? But it's kind of like, that was something that I kind of kept thinking. But also even thinking in terms of how eclectic the menu was, it was really a representation of my history as a chef, right? Like my experiences as a cook coming up, and the places that I work, and the techniques that I learned. But also it was a little bit of kind of a representation of what Brazilian culture is, which a lot of people don't know. Right?
So for people that don't know, what are some of the things that in Brazil you grew up eating? What does the food culture look like?
Well, I mean, I'm half my family comes from Bahia, which is the biggest, I think one of the largest African concentrations outside of Africa. So it's really it's so engraved in the culture and the cuisine of that region, the religion of that region, the practices, all that. So I grew up kind of eating that food, but also I grew up in Rio, which is like a melting pot of all these different cultures. So Brazil has the fourth largest Italian population outside of Italy, the number one Japanese population outside of Japan. So we have, obviously, right, we're colonized by Portuguese, so that is a lot of European kind of style of cooking and just the style of eating as a whole, right? Like, I mean, all the restaurants in Rio open at 7 p.m. and they close at 9:30.
Okay.
Like, you know, like, I mean, because no one eats dinner at 5 o'clock. Like, you know, like, it's just like a very sort of like European way to eat it. So introducing all those things at Meridian, that was important for me to sort of like, but it was still like, I mean, I remember a critic writing once, it was like, oh, this food is not Brazilian enough. Like, who are you to say that this is not Brazilian enough? You know what I mean? I'm the Brazilian. Like, I actually grew up eating this shit. So it's kind of like, you know, like, it's weird. Like,
So
you know,
do you feel pressure from that? Like the critics that were pushing you saying this isn't Brazilian enough when they don't know?
Listen, I think it was only once that someone kind of said that. I think there was still some people kind of come into the restaurant. Most of the people loved the restaurant, and even this critic itself, like, he loved the restaurant. I know he did, and I know he appreciated what I was doing, and it's kind of like, you know, later on he kept like kind of giving us, like, you know, some good feedback and whatnot. But I think, like, overall, right, all the response was amazing. I think there was still like this kind of misconception for most people. They're like, oh, okay, am I eating Brazilian? Is this Brazilian food?
Like,
is this Brazilian food? I have no idea. I thought I was eating like pasta with, like, you know, like pork ragu, and I'm like, yes, this is my food, but it's like with kind of like this Brazilian lens, you know. So, but it was unique. It was kind of special, and I think, like, it's definitely something that I want to kind of bring back, and even for the future projects that I have going on, like, it will be sprinkled here and there. Right, like, I think until really, like, that is a place that I can call really, like, this is a Brazilian restaurant. I don't know if that's going to happen, but maybe it will.
So I have a question. So I like to ask a lot of chefs what their creative process is. But when you were opening Meridian, and you had a lot of time, because I remember we did the mentor dinner. I think we did another dinner. So I felt like maybe you had almost, I mean, my old podcast, you were even a guest on my first podcast, right? So what was almost like a year in pre-opening?
It was about a year and a half almost in pre-opening.
So what is the creative process in your mind? Because you have a year and I don't know, are you writing ideas? Are you in books? How do you go from okay, I'm gonna put my identity on a plate? What does the process look like for you to get those ideas to final completion?
I think it's different from dish to dish. There were certain dishes that kind of like I knew sort of exactly what I wanted, and I think we nailed right in the head. Like one of those was like this tapioca fritter, right? Like I feel like we wanted to do that. I wanted to have a section on the menu. There was a snack section. I was like, let's make either Copy Cooling House or Cure Something House, or we're going to get some really nice kind of prosciutto or ham or something. And then it was going to be basically this little plate of this crispy fritters with all these different Brazilian cheeses that are kind of incorporated there. Some ham. We're going to make our own hot sauce. It's going to have some pickles that is going to change based on what we get from the farm, you know? And that we kind of like nailed right in the head. I had, but then there was some other dishes that were kind of a little bit more difficult, right? Like I knew that I wanted to do a muqueca.
What is that? For
muqueca is a dish that I grew up eating. It's a fish stew that comes from Bahia. It's something that my grandmother used to make all the time. And it's normally when you sit at a restaurant and you order a muqueca, it's kind of like rice comes in, it's like, you know, it's the fish kind of like steaks, right? There's still bones in it. Mm-hmm. Some of them, they're like, you know, like that kind of, it's the broth. It's kind of oily. It's herbs all over the place. It's kind of like, almost like, you know, a hot pot kind of thing, you know? Yeah. It's served traditionally on like a clay pot. Like, you know, like it's very sort of homey, but it's delicious, right? Like has all the peppers and onions and tomatoes kind of like, you know, stewed up in there by all pieces. So how to kind of do that dish and have a representation of that dish, but also elevated that dish to a more fine dining and still have that. I think that was one of the most difficult dishes for me because I had a very clear image of what that dish was and what I want to represent for like my grandmother, but how I needed to elevate that. So that process took a couple times, us doing it. Do we puree this? Do we don't puree this? Do we kind of add this? Do we don't? Do we kind of like, I mean, so we went through these phases until we kind of got to a point where we're like, no, this is good. This is it.
Do you ever feel the pressure to live up to, okay, this dish is important to my grandmother, like you said earlier? Did you feel pressure to deliver it in a certain way, but also make sure it fully represents the style of restaurant in Dallas and all that?
It was a little bit of a pressure. Again, it was a little bit of a pressure, especially because it started to kind of come where like literally every week there were like Brazilians eating at the restaurant. Yeah. So there was kind of almost a little bit of the truth testing.
I didn't realize there was a big Brazilian.
I didn't realize either until like we opened, and then I was like, there's all these Brazilians come out of nowhere. Yeah. And so I think for me it was cool because it was really like nice for them to kind of like give them, man, like this is awesome. I felt like I was at home. Yeah. Right. I felt like, you know, and there was this dish that is one of my favorite snacks on the beach. Is just this simple like cheese on a stick that gets grilled, and on the beach in Brazil they kind of offer you with like some dry oregano or some honey. So we kind of did like a hot honey and like put some more. We had a big garden, so we picked herbs every day. We had like this really nice oregano, and like came on this little grill kind of with smoke and kind of representation like of that beach vibe. And like the Brazilians would be like, man, I feel like I'm on the beach, right? Like I feel like I'm like, so that was a good like.
And you had a really good bread program too.
Yeah, we got an amazing bread program.
Do you think bread? Well, maybe let me revise how I asked this question. How important do you think bread is to the dinner service?
I think is extremely important. I think that was one of the things there because I grew up, right? My memory growing up was going to this restaurant and you order the couve-vert, which was kind of a very Portuguese European thing where like you order, comes the bread, some crackers, and comes like a couple of butter, maybe an oil thing, some kind of chicken liver mousse, like some of the spreads, some almost kind of like a little bread course, like you just have a little array of things. So I wanted to kind of do something like that. And I had a guy named David Madrid, which was an amazing head baker, and he kind of like, I kind of got him in the project. We were talking about this for a while, and then I was like, man, like I want to make like different breads almost every day, right? Like, and kind of like change the bread throughout the week. So many times I feel like no restaurant does this. no one kind of like, have that ability to sort of like put this much emphasis and focus.
Most
right?
of them don't even bake bread.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I think a lot of the creative, and just kind of answer your question like as a whole, a lot of the creative aspect of it was things like, how do I bring things from memory, from like history of me growing up, but also things of like that I kind of also learned working in restaurants. But I think for me, it was how to bridge those and still give people something delicious.
yeah.
At the end of the day, like, for me, what was important was to make sure, I think that's what sometimes a lot of chefs kind of forget, that like you are cooking for the guest and you are not cooking for yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
I know
so how to kind of take this concept and take this food and be yours, but at the same time, be in a way where like, man, this person, like when this tapioca fritter with ham and hot sauce, we made it. And a guy that, my consider like my little brother, like, this guy Justin Mosley that worked for me for 7 years.
Yeah.
As a total, and he was part of the creative process from the beginning. And I remember when we did that, he kind of like, oh man, yes, who's not gonna like this? It's fried cheese with ham and hot sauce.
Yeah.
Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like,
it's delicious.
So it's kind of like, but it's like, so it's still like that's that kind of resemblance and that kind of, I think it's important when you create something to kind of imagine how people are going to feel when they eat it.
So during that time, and not just during that time, but also throughout your career, there's, and I felt this as well, there's the pressure of the critics. And specifically in this time, so you were nominated for Outstanding Chef James Beard. I think you were D Magazine's Best Restaurant, Best Chef. I mean, it was like boom, boom, boom. You were stacking up awards. Did you ever feel pressure to keep, like, okay, what's the next one? What's the next award that we're going to rack up? Like, you have to live up to the pressure that you're getting from, sometimes it's yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, right? Like, I remember when I was in New York and working for a big high-profile chef and a big celebrity chef, and I was part of the opening of a restaurant, and he was there every day, working and cooking with us and changing dishes and tweaking things and all that, and I remember until we got like a 3-star review from the New York Times, right? Which at the time, this is like 16 years ago. Yeah. Like, it's a big deal. It was almost before Michelin Michelin was still there, but before, was already there, but kind of before was really like, that New York Times had still such a huge, like, clout in the city. And getting a 3-star review was amazing, right? Like, it was kind of like, there was very few restaurants that had that. And I remember the day after the review came out, we toast, and then he said something that I always kind of like stay with me. Like, when it comes to that, he's like, well, great job, everyone. Amazing. We're so proud. Now the work gets even harder. Yeah. Because now I got to prove to everyone that we are 3 stars.
Yeah, basically earn it every day.
Yes.
You got to earn it every day.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of like, so I think it's like, and the pressure I think was more to kind of like live up to like, these people are coming here, right? They have heard about it. So how can we deliver this experience? How can we deliver the food? How can we make them like, like where they feel like, oh yeah, I heard of this place, and it delivered, right?
I mean, for people that listen to this podcast, they'll know I told the story. And I also, Fermin was a guest on the show, and we told the story on that podcast, but we were at dinner, and I'm like almost 99% certain the person that was sitting next to us was as an inspector, right? So it's like they're looking at their phone, they're listening to our conversation. And I remember I'm thinking like this person's an inspector. And then as soon as they got up to go to the restroom, you're like, I bet you. It was like, we're both thinking the same thing. Yeah. They were ordering coffee. I'm looking at their phone and they're scrolling food pictures.
He's outside taking pictures of this.
Yeah. It's funny how you could spot them when you've been in the game long enough, and especially having to deal with critics. There's nothing worse than getting that phone call of saying, hey, the photographer's on their way. and
had
they
no
have some
idea.
fact-checking questions coming up. It's like, shit, what did they order? And like, okay, they ordered this. They want to take photos of this. Okay, that's what they ate. Pull the checks. Who was it? Who was the server?
Yeah.
Right? You're going back in your mind, and then you're asking them, do you remember this table?
Oh,
How did you not catch them?
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. It's funny because I feel like you don't really have that much. I think that's with Michelin is still anonymous, right?
Right.
But I feel like that kind of I felt a lot like that in New York, and I feel like in Texas was different.
Yeah.
Like, for a long time, where like you kind of knew who everyone was.
Right.
Right? Like, I mean, yes, they may use a different name, but it's not like that they are kind of getting it disguised or anything. Like, I mean, that it was still easy enough to see who they are, right?
Did you have, because I know I did you have like contingency plans? Like if a food critic comes in, this is what we do?
Not so much. I think kind of it don't get me wrong, right? Like, I mean, it would be bullshit of me saying that, like, we treated
everyone's a
guest the
VIP.
same. Everyone's a VIP. Like, like, of course, it's like, of course, as a chef, like, you are going to put more attention to that table.
Sure.
You are going to kind of like, but I don't think that, like, we did it. We did anything extra. We did anything kind of like, we're just like, hey guys, just make sure this stuff is tight, right? Just make sure that, like, like,
eyes on it.
if you put eyes on it,
Yeah.
taste at everything, make sure, like, you know what I mean? Like, make sure you get like the centerpiece of the fish, not the tail piece.
Right. Yeah.
Just those little things, right? Like, I mean,
Yes.
kind of like, but not that, like, it was anything super special, right? Like, I feel, especially because I think that there are so many chefs that kind of like, and so many people that kind of does that, especially when they realize that is a critic.
Right.
And then you kind of like start to like, oh, okay, like, let me send this, let me send that, let me send this, right? And I think, like, having friends that were critics and people that, like, I have talked, and they're like, no, we don't want that, right?
Right.
And even like when you talk to TK and stuff like that, like and people that knows, right? He's like, no, like, you don't need to send TK caviar. He
Yeah.
owns a caviar company.
Yeah.
He has eaten enough caviar.
He wants what he ordered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Just
Yeah.
give him what he wants. And that's like, though, you don't need to give him anything extra. Like, like, it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to kind of like really
To restrain.
to restrain. Yeah.
So here's a funny story. When Leslie Brenner was the critic at Dallas Morning News, she came into the restaurant. And what I would do, once we recognized the critic, I would hold a table next to them and then plant someone next so they could text me like, okay, they're this is what they're saying about your sauce or
Yes.
whatever the case may be. But she was done with the meat course and she sent it back. And I'm in the back looking at it, and I'm like, "How was it done?" Because I'm verifying that everything was looking good. And I take a piece, and I'm fucking with the plate, and then the server comes around the corner. He's like, "She wants that to go," and I've already destroyed the steak, and I'm cutting into it. I'm like, "Oh shit!" And so I was like, "What?" Hit the panic button. But what I used to do is I would always cook two portions.
Two pieces,
portions.
yeah.
So it's like, oh, we have the, and so we cut it to make it look like
she
and put it in the box.
That's funny.
Yeah. I do want to ask you a question. So you talked about Justin, and he a phenomenal chef.
Yes.
Right. Like I also agree he's super talented, and so shout out to him if he's listening. What do you do? Because obviously you're involved with Mentor BKB as well. How important is mentorship? First question, and then the second question: what do you do to mentor the young culinarians that you work with?
I think it's a good question. I feel like I think mentorship, right? Like, you can only mentor someone that wants to be mentored,
Right.
right? Like, I mean, it's kind of you cannot teach anyone that thinks that they already know something or thinks that, like, like what they or not put in the work to learn that or to do that. I think, like, I got the opportunity, right, to have worked with people like Justin, and I can name like a couple other chefs, right? A bunch of other chefs that I feel like I'm proud to say that people that had work under me or with me that now are like, well, executive chefs throughout Dallas, and people that are like, like even directors at some other, like, big groups and things like that. And I think, like, it is awesome to see that. I think like a lot of the mentorship comes from them, like the way I don't love micromanaging people. I think like the way I work the best is by collaboration and kind of like and really instill people, like, I mean, the that is the right way of doing things, the right way to sort of like go about, if it's a technique, if it's how you clean, if it's how you kind of act, is how you talk to people, like all those things, right? It's not just about the cooking. I think it's kind of like it's about everything else, right? There's a lot of people that know how to cook.
Right.
So I think for me is kind of like touching and let them see like, okay, this is how I deal with this purveyor here. I deal with this front of the house person, and kind of be able to sort of like bridge and kind of like teaching them that is why we're doing this and why we're kind of like looking at this way, right? That is a better way. Like put yourself in my position. Look from here the same way I'm looking from their position. So I think like when you start to kind of like having them sort of like look here, and then you're also looking here, and you kind of like start pushing them to sort of do right. Like, I mean, they gotta do the job. And I think is like someone like Justin is one of the hardest working people I know. Right? Like, I mean, he is extremely dedicated, right? Extremely passionate about food. So if we're having a discussion about something, he's also trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. He's coming to the table with something. I think like somebody that is just sitting and just kind of like, I'm just going to sit here and take it, you're not going to get it. Right? Like it's the same way I think for me, like, I mean, the amount of times I ask my chef or kind of try to come and be there, be ready, be present. Like I'm not going to kind of get taught anything if I'm not set up on my station. Right? Like, I mean, there was one time a cook kind of complained and ended up eventually leaving the restaurant because he wasn't getting enough opportunity to sort of move up to a station after 6 months, right? And we're like, well, there is still a lot of things that you need to accomplish here. Like, if every other day a chef needs to come and cut chives for your station, then why are we talking about you creating a dish?
Right.
You know, like, and I think those are like the things that kind of like it's hard for the generation to kind of like really get. Like, no, kill at your job. Do everything that you can do at your job. And
before you think you can do my job.
Before you exactly right, and before you think like, you know, you have like all this other stuff. It's like I love the passion, and I love like that. But it's like I think sometimes like people look at like, no, I'm passionate, I'm driven about this, but it's like, but you're putting a lot of your energy on things that are not.
When you start cooking, like when you go from zero to culinary school, like everything's new. Your learning curve is like, you're learning about ingredients that you didn't even know existed, and then you get, you know, every day in cooking school or in your first job, you're learning it's a new dish, and I could take this home, and then you get to the real world, and it's like, no, you're not learning a new dish every day. Just these 5 every day, these 5 dishes, and so sometimes the new cook is frustrated, like, well, when do I get to do my dish? But because they were in school where they got to create. It's like, no, this isn't school. Welcome to the real world.
Or I'm tired of cooking the same dish over and over again. You know.
Yes.
But there is something to be said about consistency.
Yeah.
If you think about like I mean, Hillstone, they don't change their menu every week. Yeah. And they're extremely profitable.
I was talking to this guy, and he runs this fine dining restaurant, and he was telling me, you know, he changes the menu. I don't know if he said like every week or something like that. And I'm like, man, I don't. For me, that's like, wow, kudos to you for doing that. I know that's a challenge, but there's something to be said. Also, like, have some greatest hits, so the customer comes back. We were talking about that earlier. Like, so they come back, they're familiar, they know what to expect. They're not shocked with everything new every single week. I do want to ask you, so you were talking about mentorship. When you were coming up in the kitchen, like when you were a young cook, what was the mentorship like back in those New York City kitchens when you were starting to come up?
I mean, it's a little different, right? Like, I mean, I'm kind of still part of the little bit of the old school way of how things were in that environment. I think for me, especially being a black immigrant, like, like in New York 20 plus years ago, like it was a little different, right? Like, I mean, and where I'm still kind of combination of learning to speak English, getting direction, executing in my job, getting yelled at, not quite understanding why I get yelled at.
Had you cooked in Brazil, or did you start? You
never.
started cooking.
I started cooking like professionally when I got here.
Yeah.
So I think those things were very different, and I think, but I always kind of just had this attitude of just putting my head down and work as hard as I could. Right, and I think as that hustle of New York City and not be able to kind of like I had to make it happen. Like I had no other choice. Like it's not like I had my parents' house to go to. It's not like I had like any sort of backup plan. Like I need this job. I need to make this money to pay my rent. So I think like all those things like play factors of having some sort of attitude that kind of like, I mean, I'm here. Like I'm gonna, doesn't matter how shit I'm getting, like I'm still going to kind of like, do this job. And there was like one time where I think I told you the story. I think maybe it was in a group and maybe I told you the story once, but I think like where I was working right at this really high profile restaurant and I was working hot apps and was this big kitchen, 20, almost like 30 people in the kitchen, like, and the chef kept asking for sweetbreads. And it was the longest pickup on the hot apps, right? Yeah. So the cook, the dishwasher, I had two ovens. One would stay at like 150 degrees while my plates, it would stay, and I had like, a 550, 600 degree oven, like just banging shit out. So the guy asked for the chef asked for like the sweetbreads, and I start cooking, blah, blah, blah. He's like yelling over there the other side. I grabbed the plate was cold. And I'm like, oh, I cannot plate hot food in a cold plate. So I put it in the hot oven, thought I had time to like do something else. When I went to grab the plate, and he's like yelling at me like, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, right? I grabbed the plate, it was scorching hot. I played it, but had no other idea. And then he reached over before I was able to say that the plate was hot. And he burned himself. And he was like, his like yell, like kind of like, like the entire kitchen stopped. And it was like this moment of like, oh shit, I lost my job.
Right.
And he looked at me, he's like, you effing burned me. Yeah. Like, and then I was like, oh my God, like, he's like, chef, I'm so sorry. Like, and it's like, don't sorry me. Like, I want to punch you in the face. I want to like, just like start laying onto me, and this was like a 7:30.
Is this the head chef? Or
he was the executive chef, and then there was a chef owner,
Got it.
And the chef owner walks into the kitchen. Is like, what happened? And he's like, he happened.
Pointing at you.
Like this, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, like, like, and then it was such a hostile kind of environment, right? Like, and all.
By the way, are you cooking the next order? Are you trying to like refire it?
There's still things happening, right? There's still tickets coming. There's still food in the window, like, and like, it was 7:30 p.m. So it's still like in the peak of the rush, right? And there was something, I think there was a moment, I think if I were to tell, there was like a moment where like I'm kind of like, man, this is where things kind of maybe like turn. I was able to like, I'm able to sustain this. Was after he called, I mean, I made this decision of like, I'm going to not give this guy one more reason to yell at me. I'm going to cook everything. I'm going to fucking have a perfect night. And throughout the whole night, he will ask for stuff. Here it is. blah, blah, what it is. Everything is like tight. At the end of the night, he kind of comes to me and he's like, are you coming back tomorrow? And I was like, yeah. I mean, it's my job. My name is on the schedule. Like, I will be here.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, don't ever burn me again. And I'm like, it never happened again. And then at that point on, I became like one of his favorite cooks.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's such like, right, looking back is like in that moment, it's such a messed up way. I didn't really understood. Part of me is kind of like thought of like, it was a test, right? To see like, did I pass? Mm-hmm. Did I sustain the kind of like the pressure of him yelling at me, of producing good food, and still be able to come back the next day? Mm-hmm. Is it healthy? Not really, mm-hmm. right? But it kind of taught me something. It taught me like this resilience. Mm-hmm. And
it didn't kill you.
It didn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and
right.
it kind of like, but it's like, it's just a weird thing that I think like it's not at all like how we're supposed to do it now.
Right.
But it's also like, that has been moments, right? Like that's kind of in the kitchen. There was like one time where he
same chef. Yeah.
And I was responsible of this whole kind of section of the restaurant. It was like the front of the restaurant after months later, and we needed to cut butternut squash, and for some reason, the chef wanted to cut the butternut squash like perfect one by one on the bandsaw. For some reason, that was like the directive. So, we chef, that's what's gonna happen, right?
Right.
So I show this cook how it was, and then left. She kind of went and finished, finished the squash. Mm-hmm. I went back upstairs to the kitchen. Maybe 15 minutes later, I see like him kicking the door and coming with like half of the garbage in his hand with like all the bottom of the butternut squash that basically this cook only cut the top part of the butternut squash,
the belly,
and throw everything in the garbage. Yeah. So he came and he was like, who did this? Who does this? Who throws this food in the garbage? And then like he kind of yells and it goes on. And then that night, me and this other cook, we were going, because the company had other restaurants, so we're going to go to eat at this other restaurant for dinner that night. Right. We had vouchers and all that, so we went to eat. And we got there, and then, like, the chef's like, we heard what happened, like, today. And I'm like, oh, my God, like, so weird. Like, what do you mean you heard? Like, does chef know you're here? I was like, no. Like, normally I would tell him, like, that we would go there, but, like, that day wasn't the day to tell him that we were going anywhere. And then, like, we ordered the food, and then basically, like, here comes like the main course, and they brought out the main course, and they brought this beautiful copper pot with like a butternut squash puree, and like it kind of put us like love chef, and so like like that was kind of like and it was such like when we got back to the restaurant the next day, he walked in and we looked at him and the cook was like, chef, I got the message. Would never happen again.
Yeah.
Like, just like funny things like that kind of happen throughout that you are like, you kind of just mold, right? You watch and you pay attention.
So it's funny how you're talking about how you got dressed down in the old days, the chef would dress you down, and then are you going to come back the next day? I used to kickbox. I used to box and fight. And I remember once in sparring, I got knocked out. This guy head kicked me, and like I was out. And everyone's like, "Oh, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then like, "No more sparring for you today." I went home, and then I'm working, so I didn't show up to the gym for like 2 weeks. And then I go back and they're like, "We thought you quit." It's like, but it was the same thing. Like sometimes they push you a little bit hard in the gym and like, "Oh, hey, we knocked him out just to see if he's going to come back tomorrow." Kitchens were the same way. Yeah. So I understood that a little bit when I was coming up. So for a lot of chefs out there, and I think some of us are very good at this. I think I'm good at this. You're good at this. Where we have a strong network of chefs. Like it's like you pick up the phone. I'm going to call someone like, "Hey, I'm in town. Let's go to dinner. Let's go hang out, whatever." But I also know a lot of chefs are like lone wolves. Like they don't know anybody. They don't reach out to anybody. How important is it as a chef to have a strong network of other chefs in the community?
I mean, I think it's extremely important. I feel like if you're a lone wolf, I don't think you're necessarily doing the right job. I don't think you kind of really. I think a chef, it's important for its community. If that means it's your community, locally community, right? Like if your restaurant or your city, but also as a chef community, right? Like, and I think like be able to sort of have that network, because at the end of the day, like, right, I mean, I was proud to say that I have people that worked at Meridian and now they're like at Atomix in New York, and they're French Laundry, and they're like, you know, like some other great restaurants in the country, and and a lot of that were because, right, like either through a mentor or through just making a phone call and like, you know, like, and getting someone those opportunities. I mean, they had to prove themselves,
Right.
But it's still like proud for me to say that like they work in my restaurant, and then they went to work at some 3 Michelin star restaurants, and they're successful and they're doing well, right? Like, and I think like all that is because of network and connections and things like that, and I think is extremely important.
Well, it's funny because, like, I mean, there's the things that we talk about on the podcast. There's things that we talk about off the podcast. And there's also some news comes out, or someone's looking for a job. It's like, boom, I have this group chat, and then I have that group chat. It's like you and Matt in one,
Yeah.
and it's like I have another one like Gabe and Rico, and it's like you have like several groups that you're like, hey, who knows, or do you know anybody for this? And I think when
Yeah,
you
I
have,
mean, I was hitting you up for,
Right.
like, you know.
yeah, like when you have a strong network, it's like, hey, does anyone know where I could buy this? Has anyone ever worked with this person?
Yes.
And if you have a strong network, I think I saw you on a plane the other day.
Was a year or so ago. Like, yeah, it was again, right, this opportunity is I got to meet, you know, being part of Mentor and all that, and some all these events and cherries. I got to meet, I got to spend time, right, with Thomas Keller, with Danielle Ballud, and all these guys, and also meet like Ming Tsai and a bunch of other chefs. So I was planning to go. This was like about a year and a half ago. I was planning, almost 2 years ago. I was planning to go to Lyon for the Bocuse d'Or.
Right.
And I had kind of already actually bought my ticket and all that. Then one day I got just a text message from Ming.
You're in New York at the time.
I was in Dallas. So this was
Dallas.
like about 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I got a text message from Ming Tsai, and I was like, it's like, chef, see you in Lyon. It was very like weird. Like it was kind of like a weird text message. It was kind of like, fly to Lyon or something. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, chef, like I am going. And he's like, no, call me. And I'm like, so I call him, and he's like, okay, this is what you're going to do. You need to be in New York City. Like, I don't know what kind of travel arrangements you have, but you fly to New York this day.
Yeah.
You need to be in New York on Thursday by 6 p.m. We're going to go to Restaurant Danielle for dinner. And then after Danielle, we're going to get in a car, and we're going to go to the airport, and we're going to get a private jet, and we're going to fly to Lyon. And I was like, what? And I'm like, is this a joke? And I was like, sure. He's like, are you in? I'm like, sure. Yeah. He's like, send me your passport. Okay. So it's kind of like just did that, and then yeah, there was an amazing kind of like made the trip, right? Got to New York. My bags were actually did not make on the plane, so I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, like, you know, am I gonna miss this private jet? I'm gonna miss like this. So got that sorted out. Went to the restaurant. We all had dinner. And then we got on the plane, in the car, and basically went to the airport. It was like a group of 10 of us, and it was Danielle, Ming, and Melissa Rodriguez, like, you know, some other chefs, kind of like, you know, I think there was like us as the chefs, and then like the other kind of like, right. people. And it was amazing. We just like flew to Lyon. But then the best part of the whole thing was really like, right, and Danielle brought a bunch of champagne on the plane. So we were drinking champagne and flying to Lyon, like, you know, on this private jet, right? I was mind-blowing. Like, I couldn't believe that this was happening. Landed, and a group of us were all staying in different hotels. And so was 10 of us on the plane. We got out, tried to kind of figure out from the cars where we're going to go. And then, long story short, I got in the car with Danielle. And then I thought it was like, I'm not staying in the same hotel that he is. And then I was like, hey, chef, are you going to drop me off at the hotel? And because he was saying that, like, I'm going to go see my parents. And I was like, oh, okay, you're going to drop me off at the hotel. You're going to go see your parents. And he's like, no. You come into my house. I'm like, what? And he's like, no, yeah, you hungry? You have lunch at my house. I could not believe it. I was like, I felt like the whole drive there, I felt it was like them, because it's funny, there's an Anthony Bourdain episode, but like he goes to Lyon,
at Danielle's house
he
with
goes
his
to
dad.
Danielle's with his dad and all that, and that was me. I felt like that was my experience. It was just me, Danielle, and then like we got there, and the house where he was born, and his mom and his dad were there, his brother, his sister, and Danielle and myself. And
that's a bucket list.
And that was like, we're sitting like this home that has been his family forever, and we eating smoked salmon and mosh salad, all this stuff that grow in the garden. And like, his mom is 95 years old, and she was like cooking duck breast, and like, we eating this meal and drinking like pear brandy that they make over there. Like, I was like, couldn't believe it.
This is an experience that people can't even pay for. Like,
no,
like,
there was
like you can't even pay for this.
There was no price on it. There was no price on it.
Right.
And it was funny because at that night we had a big reception at a restaurant, Paul Bocuse.
Yes.
And Danielle was giving the opening remarks, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's a great trip, blah blah blah." Took Junior to my house today. The entire restaurant looked at me, is like, who is this guy? Like Danielle doesn't take me to his house.
Right.
So it was like, it felt really special. And I thank him. I was like, chef, like, this is so, it reminded me of like going to my grandmother's house, like, right, like me eating that sort of like homey food,
right.
and just being with family.
That's an incredible experience.
It was an amazing experience. It was an experience to bucket list.
So yeah, bucket list for sure. So network's important.
It is.
Yeah, network's important. It'll open so many doors for people listening. Like your network, like a lot of people say it's like it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's like that you'll understand that a lot more when you get into positions where you need favors.
But I think that is the right way to network too.
I agree.
Right? I think sometimes like by treating each one with respect, with integrity, helping people, right? Like being like a good person, like I think it will get you, like, I think like just by that working, just by being at things doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting the right network.
Right.
I think by kind of like sort of a lot of the times I've been in rooms, right, like where I was part of the judges to select the Team USA for Bocuse d'Or.
And Jeff Hayashi went?
No, with Stephanie.
Okay. Yeah.
And sometimes, I mean, even being in that room, I'm like looking around, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm in this room with like Thomas and Danielle and William Bradley and like, and Paul Bartolotta and like, and like Josiah Citron, like, I mean, all these guys, like, like Gavin Kaysen, like, I mean, oh my God, like, I mean, it's like people that like, I can't even believe I'm there. And then it was funny because I had done a little demo for like, one of the sponsors for like some beef with like a little piri sauce, so kind of like a Brazilian thing, right? And I had some left over, and then Matt Peters was like, "Oh yeah, everyone's hungry. You should just feed that to the group." And I'm like, "What? No, I'm not gonna feed that to the group." It's like, "Yeah, just fucking like put that steak in there." It's like, "I'll go over there. I'll cut it for you." And I was like, "Okay." So it's like we go over there and heat it up, the stuff, and put it in front of them, and like it's like again, like like just food, just food. All chefs, all people, but it's just like simple food, and they're all over there eating, right? Like, this is delicious, this is great, like, right? Like, I mean, and it's just like simple things, right? It's not like I was trying to push anything. I was trying to kind of like, and it's just like, oh, who did this? Oh, Junior did it. It was like, oh, awesome. Like, this is great.
Right.
Like, and it's like cool, right? Like, it's those like little moments that like you don't really, I don't take for granted. because that's not, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I could never imagine that, like, you know, for someone like me that, you know, 23 years ago, I didn't even speak English, and here I am, you know.
So everyone that comes on Chef's PSA, I always ask them this question. It's like, if you had one Chef's PSA for people that are listening, what advice would you give to people right now?
It's kind of like a loaded question, but I think it's, man, I mean, I do, sometimes I look back, right, and I think of the people that, like, have worked with me and how I work. I think, like, just put your head down, just do the right thing, just work hard, you know, and just be good to people. I think, like, try to take your time for things. I think sometimes people rush a lot. You know what I mean? I think even, like, I tell young chefs, and, like, man, you're only 28 years old, or you're only 30 years old. Like, there's still so much that you can still learn and do before you go sign up on this restaurant deal. Right? So I think, like, taking the time to do the right thing, listen first, right? Like, and just put your head down and work.
And for people that want to follow you, where can they find you?
Chef Junior Borges.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
On Instagram? They find you?
Yeah, they find it for that.
All right, good, man. It was good seeing you.
Good to see you too, man.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to support the show, you know what to do. Make sure you leave 5 stars, nothing less than 5 stars. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, comment, let me know what you think of this episode. Go to chefspsa.com where you get everything, the books, the merch. Go buy a book, go buy a t-shirt, go buy a hoodie, go buy this hat. Beautiful and nice. Go get it. If you want early access to episodes, subscribe to my Substack. I'm going to link them in the show notes. We'll see you next week. Hit the porno music.
Yo, it's André in the kitchen, mixing, dropping chef knowledge, no fiction, stirring up the beats, heating up the session. Listen close, class is in session.